Hello, KISS audience. You are listening to Taking It Black here on the 987 KISS FM YouTube studio. We're here doing our podcast, Taking It Black. This this week, I wanted to cover something that is, I think, extremely important. I've been attending some meetings regarding the American Rescue Plan and how it impacts African Americans. And I think we need to know how we can um, take advantage of what this plan offers our community. And I think it would be a sad day for us to later say, oh, if only I had known. So I'm giving you an overview today of what this plan would mean for the African American community, but it is going to be imperative that you contact your city officials, your state officials, and get them to set up uh, audiences to explain how this works. I'm going to go through some of the things that we have been discussing regarding this plan, but it's going to be imperative that you do. There's no way I can do justice to it on a podcast for a 30 minutes or an hour podcast. We can't. But the money will be there to help change our communities. We've got $1.9 trillion that we're looking at. A lot of this money is earmarked for the Black community, for the African American community. Farmers, Black farmers are going to get several $1 million in these funds. There's just Black farmers. There's just too many opportunities that we need to take advantage of in this bill. Why? We've got 13% of African Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population. However, 24% of the age adjustments for COVID. 13% of the population, but we make up 24% of those who were affected by the deaths, I should say, death rate for COVID. There's money to assessed for that. There's money to for all communities regarding that, but particularly for African American communities, because 24%, that's 1/4 of the deaths. We have a higher than average unemployment rate, particularly after COVID. So the economic challenges associated with this pandemic has hit the African American community significantly more than it has other communities. You have you have Black Americans are facing one of the highest economic rates. As I said, in January, 9% of African American workers, that's 1.8 million. 1.8 million people were unemployed. Approximately 1 in 5 Black households are struggling with food insecurity. You've got more than 1 in 3 Black renters having fallen behind on their rent payments, which means they're going to be homeless if this plan doesn't take place. And we have a significant number of Black families who, just as high a number of Black families who are struggling to pay their mortgages and are close to losing their homes. So this, the American Rescue Plan, which was signed in March of this year, March of 2021, will change the course of this pandemic with respect to African American families, small businesses, and reduce poverty in African Americans communities by 34%. That's the plan, to have it reduce poverty in African American communities by 34%. But that's not going to happen if the African American community does not wake up and take advantage of this program. And so I'm going to talk to you about what that looks like. You've got, there's legislation, 2/3 of the tax cuts. One of the things I wanted to make a point of, 2/3 of the tax cuts will be, and direct payments will be to families making less than $90,000 a year. And then we're going to talk about what those things specifically are. Nonprofits, we have got to address the nonprofits as well. So we're going to talk about those families who are under $90,000 and nonprofits and what they need to do to take advantage of this plan. Already we've seen what has happened with respect to the monies for safe schools as we mounted this new vaccination program. That's done. We've seen the part of the money you've seen money go to families, working families, whether they were unemployed or not, got an additional $14,000. That's done. But we've got, there's a plan to help homeowners stay in their homes by providing emergency aid to cover back rent and mortgage. How do we do this? Your representatives, some states have decided they don't want to participate. We can't help it, can't do anything about that. But there's money that will go to agencies, federal agencies, where if the money goes to the federal agency, your nonprofit, your organization can go to that agency to receive a grant or loan. Loan would be with respect to Small Business Association, but they also have grants as well. There's an increase. I'm going to talk about what we're looking at, how this impacts us. There's an increase in the SNAP program all the way through September 2021. So those individuals who are receiving money for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, who are associated with that program, their funds will be increased through September of 2021. There's an increase in the child tax credit. This is a big one, from $2,000 per child to $3,000 per child. And it's $3,600 for a child under 6 years old. Now, and it's also going to make children who are 17 years old, just for this year, qualify. They're going to qualify this year as a child. So you can get the tax credit for children 17 years old and under. So what that means to a typical family, what that means is that if you have two young children, rather than getting the $2,000 per child, you can get up to an additional $3,200 in assistance to help with the cost associated just with raising your child. Now, I'm not talking about funds that are associated with childcare. That's coming up, and there's money for that as well. And there's an increase in the earned tax credit or earned income tax credit for 17 million workers. They will get as much as $1,000. And it will help. These are the people that it will help. And it does help our community because our community are these people. Our people work in these positions. Cashiers, food preparers, servers, home health aides, frontline workers who have helped their communities get through the COVID crisis. So they get an additional earned tax credit of $1,000. They expanded child care assistance. This goes directly to hard-hit child care providers to cover their costs and their increases in tax credits to help cover the cost of that of child care. Now, this really is one of the biggest things I think our country has done since World War II in terms of child care and assigning funds to child care. So if you don't know about it, there's no way you can take advantage of these funds. Contact your city council people, contact your commissioners. The reason I found out about this, I will say, is through Sheila Tyson, and she made sure that we knew about it. But she also made sure that the other counselors. I know in Bessemer, I was on a call, and a lot of the Bessemer counselors were on the call. So contact your counselors, not just in. I work out of the Bessemer cutoff area, so I'm speaking of that. But I'm sure that the Birmingham counselors were aware of it as well. If they are not, then help them to become aware of it. But they need to have some town hall meetings to explain how we take advantage of these funds. This America Rescue Plan will also give families an additional tax credit to help cut the child care cost. Now, the healthcare providers I was talking about earlier, that's not just children. I'm talking, this one is just specifically with respect to children. Families will get back as a refundable tax credit as much as half of what they spent on childcare. That's huge. Childcare is extremely expensive. And if you have more than one child, it's very expensive. So those under 13, if you have children under the age of 13, this is for childcare. You can receive up to $4,000 for one child and $8,000 for two. So please, if you have young children, and most of the people who listen to my program, either they have young children or their grandchildren, their children have young children. We need to make sure that these families are aware of this and they take advantage of it. There's a temporary assistance for family in need. It's called TANF. These recipients are who are in a crisis because of the pandemic. They are about to lose their homes. So what this will do is it will lower the eliminate health insurance premiums for those, help those people with paying the premiums for the health care. And again, it's going to help people who are struggling with their mortgages. So let's talk about small businesses. This plan will also help small businesses. You've got communities that are struggling in the wake of COVID. African-American communities are disproportionately affected by that. The plan will provide critical support for those communities. And it will provide, in addition to, this is not all. If y'all, we can read, right? Let's pull this. You can go to the internet and pull the American Rescue Plan. You can take it to your counselors. You can take it to your city councilors. You can take it to your commissioners. And as I said, I know at least one commissioner in Jefferson County is well aware of it and making sure that people know about it. Again, Commissioner Sheila Tyson was invited me to one of the calls. So going back to what this will do in terms of the small businesses, it will provide emergency grants and lending and investment funds for those hard hit small businesses. This is really big because the last, last year when they released funds for businesses, the small businesses were out. The mom and pop businesses were out. We were hearing stories about, businesses that were solo practitioners, if they were law firms or medical facilities, if they were small mom and pop. I know we saw a story about a woman that had just opened a gym, and it was just her and one or two other employees. She didn't qualify for those funds. She does. A business like that does qualify for funds this go round. You got to apply for it, though. You have to know about it in order to take advantage of it. So I'm encouraging you to do your work. I'm bringing it to you. Do your homework and make sure that you know how to take advantage of this. This includes the Small Business Opportunity Fund to provide growth capital for those small Main Street businesses in economically disadvantaged areas. Where would that be in Birmingham? It's not hard to tell, right? We got a murder there every week. The Insleys, the Fairfields, the Bessemers. We're talking about having enough money to rebuild these areas. $1.9 trillion. That's a lot of money. And if you get to the table and we get a portion of it, it can help rebuild these areas or give a good start to businesses who want to. They will distribute more than 36, I said 1 point, I hope I said trillion, $1.9 trillion. Trillion, not billion, trillion. That's a lot of money. They'll distribute more than $360 billion in emergency fundings for state and local governments. Again, some of those states and local governments have decided they don't want to participate. And a lot won't participate because the way this is written, they're going to have to be fair and across the board. The big dogs won't be at the table on this one. And so a lot of governments are saying, well, no, if we can't take advantage of it the way we want to, then we won't distribute it at all. That's okay. It was set up to go around them. You can go to the actual agencies to take advantage of this and participate. There are a lot of agencies where you've got hard hit transit agencies that are looking at layoffs. If our cities take advantage of that money comes into our cities, it helps everyone. And we're struggling in terms of our transit community. Let's see. Let's talk about the actual funds. $22 billion in rental assistance, $10 billion to assist homeowners in avoiding foreclosure. It also includes $5 billion to assist in utility bills. There are a lot of people who are struggling with their utility bills. There's money to help with that. $5 billion in funding to assist communities to avoid, $5 billion in funding to assist communities with providing support for individuals and families experiencing homelessness. That's big. Why is that big? Because we have a lot of people who are homeless. We have people on the street. There are nonprofits. This is where the nonprofits and the churches come in. And it's not going to be where you can just go in for one single nonprofit, because you've got to be able to, this has to be a large program. So you're going to have to get together with other nonprofits. We're going to have some collaborative efforts here. And it can't be an I, me. We're going to all have to work together. One individual may take, one nonprofit may take the initiative to work with students in school, with after school programs. They may already have schools, after school programs or daycares. They could go to the table. They collaborate with someone who says, okay, I'm going to work with people with the reentry program, or I'm going to work with another nonprofit who is working with housing. We're going to have to come to the table as a collaborative effort. That's what I learned from the meetings I've been attending. This is not, if you go in by yourself, you're dead in the water already. So that's what they've told us. So if you can't find some people to work with to make these, to go after these programs, to get funds to support these programs, if you can't work collaboratively, then you're dead in the water. You might as well not go. And don't talk about how they didn't want to help us anyway, because we already know up front. So, and I was reminded here that, yeah, you got to submit a plan, and the plan has to include, and it has to show that there's a collaborative effort. And, you know, again, I can't go through it all in the amount of time that we have on this podcast. But what I can do is tell you that there's a process, and it is incumbent upon our officials to show us how this is done, to expose us to this, to make sure that we are a part of this. And if they're not, then you get some who will. Okay. It means that you got to stop. We got to read. We've got to organize. You know, I'm on a call 2 times a week regarding this, to try and work with some entities to take advantage of this. But I can't be on a call. That call, I can't extend or what am I trying to say? I can't stretch myself to everybody. There's no way I can do that. So I'm doing what I can do, and I'm sharing the information with you. But I'm asking you to demand of our leaders that they have that we have roundtable discussions about how we can work collaboratively. That's been a difficult word for me today. Let's go back to what some of the other things that we have here. We've got $1 billion for corporations for national and community service. $1 billion for corporation for national and community service. That includes, of course, the AmeriCorps positions. AmeriCorps will have people come in and help you in your nonprofits. They will actually be manpower for you. I've worked with nonprofits where we've had AmeriCorps people come in and do some of the legwork for us. So you have to include entities like this in your plan, but your plan has to be broad enough, and you have to understand it enough to know how you can collaborate with other entities. There is $7.2 billion in broadband funding to assist remote learning for K through 12 students. That's huge. We're talking about school systems working again in a collaborative effort with other organizations to go to the table to say, if you provide this information, if you provide these funds and you have a budget, you explain who gets what and why, and you explain how it's going to impact, you have a better chance of getting the money. If you go by yourself, again, as I said, that's not going to work. $1,400 in direct payments. I already said that, to individuals with children. Let's see, what's the other? And then the unemployment benefits, which Governor Ivey has said she's not going to extend for Alabama. And that's fine. There's, it's time to get back to work. We're getting, there are companies that are hiring. We can wear a mask if we want. So I think it's pretty safe. It doesn't bother me that she says that we've got to get back to work and that she's cutting it off. It was going to be cut off in September anyway. So we need to start looking for employment, I think. Again, I told you this was signed into law, $1.9 trillion in this American Rescue Plan. And I want to talk about right now the nonprofits. There is $2.75 billion, almost $3 billion in non-public schools serving students in low-income communities. Though that's just not for all the schools. This is for non-public, private schools. If you have a daycare, in your church, for non-public schools, almost $3 billion for children in low-income areas. There's no reason for any of this money to go back. No reason. We can have after-school programs for our kids, and we can have enrichment programs for our kids this summer. But we've got to take advantage of this. That means it's going to be work. We can't go home and watch TV every day. We can't, you can't go to the club, the after hour. What do we do? The happy hours every week. We've got to hit the streets doing work. We've got to plan, get prepared, and go after these funds. Our kids, our babies need this money, and they need the services that this money can bring. There's $4 billion for higher education emergency relief fund for those students who are in college, for colleges and higher education institutions. At least 50% of these funds must go. It's so important that we know what this reads so we can demand what we are entitled to. It says 50% of these funds must go. The funds that are set aside for $40 billion for higher education, for emergency relief funding for those students who are in school, in colleges or higher learning institutions, 50% must go toward the emergency financial aid for students. You have to know that it exists in order to take advantage of it. And there's no reason for us to have our kids struggling this year anyway in school. And there's funding here for this. So yeah, we need to go after that. The remaining funds can be used, if there are funds remaining, they can be used by the institution to defray the cost or lost revenue and cost of decreased enrollment because of the transitioning into online learning because of COVID. And they can also use it to purchase PPE for their students when they come back. We have $200 million in funding for the Institute of Museum and Library Services for libraries. That again means broadband. You got broadband for libraries. You have learning that children can go do streaming programs through our libraries. Again, after school programs through our libraries, language programs through our libraries, and museums. There's so many things. And again, I'm not a librarian. I'm talking off the top of my head, and the librarian may say, no, not really, but there are funds. These funds are here for museums and libraries, and our kids need this. They need this for our after school programs. Now that I know the libraries and the museums can be used for that. We have an additional, let's see. And if you just tuned into this, I'm talking about the American Rescue Plan that was signed by President Biden in March of this year, and the funds that will be used and how they can be used by the African American community to help improve the blight we have in too much of our communities. As I said, $22 billion in rental. Let's see, $10 billion to assist homeowners in foreclosures. Where am I? SNAP. Oh, $7.2 billion in broadband. We talked about that. And okay, so that's mostly it. That's mostly what we're going to talk about in terms of how this affects us and the monies that will be available for our communities. What I want to do now is these last 3 minutes is just to encourage you to find some organizations you can work with who already have a plan. This money will go to program ready. You can't say what I want to do or what it has to be ready to roll off. So when you make the presentation, you have to know who's going to do what, when, how, and it has to be ready to roll. The only way you're going to do that is to be able to get in, to collaborate with other organizations. This organization will take this part of it, and stay in your lane. Whatever your organization is working, stay on that and do it well. Let's not bring the drama to this. That's the problem that we have too often in our community. We have one person over here, this is their job, but they want to tell somebody over here in this department. I see it in the workplace all the time. Want to tell people over here what they ought to be doing. Stay in your lane. If your job is to work with, you've got an after school program, or you have you work with at-risk youth, or you work with a reentry program, whatever that is, work it well, have your plan ready. And what you will do is you put all that together in a package. You package it, you go to the meeting, you explain, this is how this package is going to impact this community. This is the impact we see coming out of this. And bam, you've got funding that can change the trajectory of our children. It's time for us to get out of the drama. It's time for us to start working and stop complaining. Don't complain. When this money is given to everybody else but us, don't complain that they didn't come give it to us, because we didn't ask for it. there are things you're going to have to do in order to ask for it. You can't do, the marching in the street, the screaming, the stomping your feet. It doesn't work that way. It has to be at the table. We've got to have a seat at the table, and we have to go to the table with the necessary tools to demand what we need in a respectable way. Anyway, that's the end of our program here. Taking It Black. I've been your host for our Taking It Black, and I'll be here each Sunday afternoon. I'm Valerie Hicks Hale, and I really enjoy the opportunity that I have to bring information to our community. I just wish that we can interact a little bit, and maybe maybe Taking It Black. Maybe our program can do one of those roundtables, and we can have people come in and we can discuss it openly. That's something I'll work on. Have a great one.